The day started like any other day. Nobody knew it would be the last normal day in human history. In New York, people were drinking their morning coffee. In London, children were walking to school. In Tokyo, workers were rushing to their offices. In Karachi, families were sitting together for breakfast. Nobody was looking at the sky, nobody was worried, nobody was ready. The signal at exactly 6:47 in the morning. A small alarm went off inside a deep space research station. The station was floating silently in orbit above Earth. Only 12 scientists worked there. Most of them were half asleep, Doctor. Elena Vasquez was holding a cup of cold coffee when she saw the screen. She put the cup down slowly. Her hands were shaking. "That cannot be right," she whispered. She checked the data again, then one more time. It was right, something was coming, something very big, something moving faster than anything human technology had ever tracked. And it was not coming from a random direction. It was coming directly toward Earth, like it knew exactly where to go. Elena pressed the emergency button without saying another word. The call 3 minutes later, the president of Earth was awake. His name was President James Harlow. He was a tall, quiet man with gray hair and calm eyes. People always said he was too calm, too quiet. They said it like it was a weakness. They were wrong. His phone rang at 6:50 in the morning. He listened without speaking for 90 seconds. Then he said only 4 words. "I will be there." He got dressed in the dark. He did not wake his family. He looked at his sleeping daughter for 3 seconds before he left the room. Then he walked out the door. The war room deep underground beneath the White House was a room that most people did not know existed. The walls were covered in screens. Generals sat around a long table. Scientists stood near the walls. Everyone was talking at the same time. Everyone stopped when the president walked in. He sat down at the head of the table. He looked at the screens. The screens showed one thing, one massive object moving through space. No, not one object, thousands of objects moving together. Moving in perfect formation, moving toward Earth. How long? The president asked. General Sarah Kane stood up. She was a short woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel. 72 hours, sir, she said. At their current speed, they will reach our planet in exactly 72 hours. The president nodded slowly. He did not look afraid. That scared some people in the room more than the ships did. The alien voice at exactly 9 in the morning, every screen on Earth went black. Every television, every phone, every computer, every billboard, every screen in every country and every city, in every small village around the world, all of them black. Then a voice came. It was not a human voice. It was cold, flat, and mechanical. But it spoke in every human language at the same time. Every person on Earth heard it in their own language. Perfectly. People of Earth, the Galactic Empire has reviewed your species. You are primitive, you are chaotic, you are dangerous to the peace of the galaxy. The Galactic Empire has made its decision. You have 72 hours to surrender your planet, lay down your weapons, power down your satellites, open your borders. Refuse, and Earth will be removed from every star map. Your species will not be remembered. The countdown begins now. Then the screens went back to normal, like nothing had happened. Like the most terrifying message in human history had just been a small interruption. 7 billion people for exactly 4 seconds. The entire Earth was silent. No car horns, no music, no children laughing, no birds, nothing. 4 seconds of total, perfect silence. Then the world exploded. People ran into the streets. Some were screaming, some were crying. Some were on their knees. Some were calling their families. Some were staring at the sky like they expected to see ships already. Governments called each other in panic. Leaders argued, some said surrender immediately. Some said fight, some said pray, some said run. But nobody could explain where. There was nowhere to run. This was not a storm coming toward one city. This was not a war between 2 countries. This was something coming for every human on Earth equally. There was no hiding. There was no escape. There was only one question. What would Earth do? The president's room, President Harlow, left the war room. He told everyone to wait. He walked down a long corridor alone. He went into a small, plain room with 1 chair and no screens. He sat down. He closed his eyes. General Kane stood outside the door. Nervous, she had fought in 3 wars. She had never felt fear like this. 20 minutes passed, then 30. An assistant knocked softly. Sir, the world leaders are waiting. The United Nations is calling. Sir, we need an answer. No sound from inside, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Then the door opened. The president walked out. His face was calm, his eyes were clear. He walked back into the war room and sat down. Every general, every scientist, every advisor looked at him. "Give me the numbers," he said quietly. General Kane pulled up the data on the main screen. "Sir, the Empire has confirmed strength of 10,000 warships, each one larger than anything we have. Their weapons technology is estimated to be at least 200 years ahead of ours. Their shields have never been broken in recorded galactic history. They have fought and won over 300 planetary wars. No planet has ever successfully resisted them." She paused. "Sir, there is no military scenario where Earth wins this fight." The room was completely silent. Everyone waited. The president looked at the screen for a long moment, then he said, "Send them a message." "And what message, sir?" Kane asked. "Tell them," the president said slowly, "that we need 24 hours to prepare our response." Nobody moved. One general, General Torres, leaned forward. "Sir, they gave us 72 hours if we ask for only 24. They will think—" "I know what they will think," the president said. "Sir, with respect, they have 10,000 ships." The president looked at him. "I know," he said quietly. Then he said something that nobody in that room expected. "So do we." The ambassador responds. The alien ambassador received the human message. His name was Varen Solis. He had delivered surrender demands to 19 planets. All 19 had surrendered. He was tall, pale, with 4 eyes and a long silver robe. He read the human message and laughed. Not a mean laugh, an entertained laugh, like a man watching a small child try to lift something too heavy. 24 hours, he repeated to his officers. "They want 24 hours. His officers smiled. "Should we allow it, Ambassador?" One asked. Varen thought for a moment. "Yes," he said. "Let them have their 24 hours. Let them say goodbye to their families. Let them make peace with their planet. It will make the surrender easier." He sent the response back to Earth. 24 hours granted, use them wisely. Humans. He turned back to his window and looked at the small blue planet below. "Primitive creatures," he said softly, almost kindly. "You never had a chance, the secret, what Varen Solis did not know, what no alien in the galaxy knew." Was that the moment the president said, 24 hours, something woke up, deep underground across 6 continents. Under 3 oceans, inside hollowed-out mountains, machines that had been sleeping for 20 years began to power on. Lights flickered in tunnels that had no names on any public map. Men and women in gray uniforms moved quickly through corridors without speaking. There were no orders needed. They had been training for this moment their entire careers, waiting for one signal, one word, and the word had come. In a facility deep beneath the Sahara Desert, a woman named Commander Yuki Sato pressed her hand against a scanner. A door opened that had not been opened in 11 years. Inside was a room full of screens, and on every screen, ships, human ships, thousands of them, sitting silently in underground launch bays, waiting. Yuki walked slowly to the center of the room. She looked at the ships on the screens for a long moment. Then she picked up the radio. "All stations," she said calmly. "This is Commander Sato. Authorization code. First light, begin all pre-launch sequences. We have 24 hours. Across the world, underground doors began to open. The Earth itself seemed to take a slow, deep breath. The last normal moment that evening. President Harlow stood at his office window. He looked at the city below. Lights were on in every building. People were still there, still moving, still living. His daughter called him on the phone. She was 17 years old. "Dad," she said, and her voice was small. "Are we going to be okay?" The president watched the city lights for a moment. "Yes," he said. "How do you know?" she asked. He smiled. "Because," he said quietly, "they made one mistake." "What mistake?" He looked up at the stars. "They told us they were coming, above the Earth." Varen Solis sat in his chair and watched the countdown. 23 hours remaining. He was already writing his report for the Empire. Earth surrendered without resistance. He was very confident. He had no idea that somewhere below him, inside a mountain, 1,000 human pilots were climbing into ships that the galaxy did not know existed, and every single one of them was smiling. The 24 hours had begun. Outside, the world was scared. News channels were running nonstop. People were panic buying food and water. Some families were driving out of cities. Some people were sitting on their rooftops looking at the sky, waiting. But underground, and it was a completely different world. Underground, nobody was panicking. Underground, people were working. Fast, quiet, and very focused, like they had been waiting their whole lives for this exact moment, because they had. The tunnel world. There were tunnels under every continent on Earth. Not small tunnels, big tunnels wide enough to fly ships through. The tunnels connected to underground facilities that were the size of small cities. These places had no names on any public map. No government had officially admitted they existed for 30 years. Hundreds of thousands of humans had worked in these places. They had told their families they worked in research, or construction, or government projects. They had never told the full truth, because the full truth was almost impossible to believe. Commander Yuki Sato walked quickly through one of these tunnels now. Her boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. Her team walked behind her, silent and fast. She turned a corner and stopped. In front of her was a door the size of a football stadium. She looked at it for one moment. Then she pressed her hand to the scanner. The door began to open. Slowly, the sound it made was deep and heavy, like the earth itself was groaning, and then the lights came on inside. The ships. There were 1,000 ships in that one facility alone. 1,000, and that was just one facility. There were 63 facilities like this one around the world. The ships were not small. They were not simple. They were beautiful in a cold, dangerous way, long and dark, with smooth surfaces that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Each one was armed with weapons that had taken 20 years to build and perfect. Each one had shield technology that the best human minds had spent decades developing. Yuki walked slowly between the ships. She ran her hand along the side of one. She remembered the day this ship was first built. She was 22 years old then, a junior engineer with a small job and a big dream. Now she was the commander of the entire program. "Are they ready?" she asked. A young engineer named Davy ran up beside her with a tablet. "All systems green, Commander," he said. "Weapons ready. Shields at full power, pilots are in position." Yuki nodded. "Good," she said quietly. "Because in 23 hours, they are going to need to be." Above the Earth ambassador, Varen Solis, was not sleeping. He was watching Earth from his command ship. He had done this with every planet before. He liked to watch the panic. It confirmed what he already believed, that the species below was weak. That surrender was coming. His chief science officer, a thin alien named Brix, walked up beside him. "Ambassador," Brix said, "we have completed our first deep scan of the planet." "And?" Varen said, not turning around. Brix was quiet for a moment. That was unusual. Brix was never quiet. Varen turned around slowly. Brix was staring at his screen with a strange expression. "The readings are strange," Brix said carefully. "Strange how?" Varen asked. "Strange as in incorrect," Brix said. "The energy readings from below the surface are much larger than expected. Much larger than a primitive civilization should produce." Varen looked at the screen. The numbers meant nothing to him. "Explain it simply," he said. Brix looked up. "It means," he said slowly, "that something very powerful is running underground. Something we cannot identify." Varen stared at him, then he looked back at Earth. For the first time, a very small feeling moved through him. Not fear. He told himself it was not fear, it was simply curiosity. "Increase the scan depth," he ordered. "I want to know what is down there." The moon 22 hours into the countdown. Something happened that nobody expected. Not the humans watching from their windows. Not the aliens watching from their ships. The moon moved, not by much, not dramatically, just slightly. A shift of position that should have been physically impossible. But every sensor in the Empire fleet picked it up. Every screen on every ship showed the same data. Brix ran into the command room so fast he nearly fell. "Ambassador," he shouted, which he had never done before. Varen stood up immediately. "What is it?" "The moon," Brix said, breathing hard. "The human moon," and it moved. Complete silence in the command room. Every alien officer stopped what they were doing. Varen walked slowly to the main screen. He looked at the data. He looked at it for a long time. "That is impossible," he said. "I know," Brix said. "Natural satellites do not move like that." "I know. The gravitational calculations alone would require—" "I know." "Ambassador," Brix said quietly, "that is why I ran." Varen looked at Earth again. That small blue planet that was supposed to be simple, supposed to be easy for the first time. Varansolis felt something cold move through his chest. He recognized the feeling, he just refused to name it. What the moon really was. 30 years ago, a group of scientists had proposed something insane. They had gone to the world governments with a plan. The plan was so large, so expensive, and so secret that most governments had laughed. 2 governments had not laughed. 2 governments had listened, and then slowly, one by one, all the others had joined because the plan, as crazy as it was, made sense. The moon was already there, it was already large. It was already orbiting Earth perfectly. All they had to do was use it for 30 years. Robots and human workers had tunneled deep into the moon. They had installed engines the size of cities. They had built weapon systems that ran the full length of the moon's diameter. They had placed power generators so large that they created their own gravity. The moon was not just a moon anymore, it was a platform. The largest weapon platform ever built by any species in the galaxy. And nobody outside Earth knew it existed. Commander Yuki Sato stood in the moon's main control room now. The room was deep inside the moon, carved from rock and lined with metal. Hundreds of operators sat at stations around her. She looked at the main screen. It showed the Empire fleet above, 10,000 ships. She had spent 30 years preparing for exactly this moment. She picked up the communication line to Earth, Mr. President, she said calmly. The moon is in position. In the war room on Earth. President Harlow closed his eyes for 1 second. Thank you, Commander, he said. The pilots wake up in the underground facilities around the world. The pilots were getting ready. There were 60,000 of them. Every one of them had trained for years. Every one of them had been told their whole career that this day might come. Most of them had spent years hoping it would not. Now that it was here, none of them were afraid. That was the strange thing. One pilot, a young man named Sergeant Leo Park, sat in his ship and checked his controls. He was 26 years old. He had been in the program since he was 18. His hands moved across the controls automatically, muscle memory from thousands of hours of training. The pilot next to him, a woman named Captain Rhea Moss, looked over. You ready, Park? She asked. Leo looked at his screen. Then he looked up through the small window of his ship at the tunnel ceiling above him. You know what's funny? He said. What? I always wondered what I would feel right now, he said. Right before the actual moment, and... He smiled. I feel fine, he said, almost surprised. I actually feel fine, Rhea smiled back. Yeah, she said quietly. Me too. Brix runs the numbers back on the Empire command ship. Brix had not slept. He had been running calculations for hours. His hands were shaking slightly as he looked at the final numbers. He walked to Ambassador Varen slowly. Varen was standing at the window, watching Earth. He had not moved in 2 hours. Ambassador, Brix said. Tell me, Varen said. Without turning, Brix took a breath. I have completed the full analysis of the underground energy readings, he said. Combined with the moon movement data, and? Brix was quiet. Brix, Varen said, harder this time. They match us, Brix said. Varen turned around slowly. What did you say? The humans, Brix said. Their military capability, based on the energy signatures we are reading, it matches ours. Ship for ship, weapon for weapon, shield for shield. The room was completely silent. Every officer heard it, nobody spoke. Varen stared at his science officer. That is not possible, he said. Very quietly, I know, Brix said. But the numbers do not lie, Ambassador. They have been hiding everything for a very long time. Varen turned back to the window. He looked at the small blue planet, the planet that was supposed to be simple, the planet that had asked for only 24 hours, and suddenly, he understood why. The last hour, with 1 hour remaining on the countdown, General Kane walked into the president's office. The president was standing at the window again, looking at the city, sir, Kane said. Everything is ready. All 63 facilities? Online and waiting. The moon? In position. The pilots? Ready? The president nodded slowly. He was quiet for a moment. General Kane, he said. Sir? In 30 years of this program, he said, did you ever think this day would actually come? Kane thought about it honestly. No, she said. I always hoped we were preparing for nothing. The president smiled slightly. And now? Kane stood straight. Now, she said. I am very glad we prepared. The president looked at the sky one more time. Somewhere up there, 10,000 alien ships were waiting. Their ambassador was probably writing his victory speech. Probably already certain that in 1 hour Earth would surrender. The president picked up the communication line. Commander Sato, he said. Sir, came the calm voice from the moon. Light it up. In the Empire command room, every screen suddenly exploded with data. Brix nearly dropped his tablet, Ambassador. He shouted. Varen ran to the main screen. What he saw made him stop completely. Across the entire planet below, doors were opening. Thousands of doors. In mountains, under oceans, in deserts. And from every single one, ships were rising, dark, fast, and silent. Rising like the planet itself was launching them. And above it all, the moon began to glow, a deep, steady, powerful glow. That lit up the entire dark side of space around it. Baron Solis stood completely still. For the first time in 19 planetary conquests, he could not speak. One of his officers whispered behind him, Ambassador, what do we do? Varen did not answer, because at that exact moment a calm human voice came through every speaker on every Empire ship. This is General Sarah Kane of Earth Defense Force. We gave you 24 hours to leave. That time is now over. The galaxy had seen many wars. Big wars, long wars, wars that lasted centuries, wars that destroyed entire planets. The Galactic Empire had fought in all of them. They had never lost, not once. In 300 years of expanding across the galaxy, the Empire had fought 297 wars. They had won 297 times. Some planets had fought hard, some planets had fought smart. But in the end, every planet had fallen, every single one until today. The first shot Ambassador Varen Solis stood at his window. His hands were behind his back. His face was completely still. But inside, something was very wrong. He was looking at the screens. Thousands of human ships rising from the planet below. The moon glowing with power that his sensors could not fully measure. General Kane's voice still echoing through every speaker on every Empire ship. His officers were looking at him, waiting. The entire fleet was waiting. Varen took one slow breath. He had two choices. Retreat, and tell the Empire that a primitive planet had frightened him away, or fight, and trust that 300 years of victories meant something. He straightened his silver robe. All ships, he said quietly. Open fire. The shields hold 1,000 plasma beams fired at the same moment. They crossed the distance between the Empire fleet and Earth in 4 seconds. Every person on Earth who was watching the sky saw them coming. Bright lines of blue-white energy moving fast. Some people screamed. Some people grabbed their children. Some people closed their eyes. The beams hit and stopped. They did not pass through. They did not explode through cities. They hit the shield layer surrounding Earth and spread across it like water hitting glass. The sky lit up in a wave of color, blue and gold and white, as the shields absorbed every single beam. One full strike from 1,000 Empire ships and not one building was damaged. Not one window broke, not one person was hurt. The shields held perfectly. Earth fires back in the war room underground. General Kane watched the shield data. Every number was green. She looked at President Harlow. He nodded once. Kane picked up the line to Commander Sato on the moon. Commander, she said simply, one shot. Target coordinates Alpha 7, on the moon. Commander Yuki Sato looked at her targeting screen. She selected 40 Empire ships in the outer left section of the fleet, ships that were already recharging for a second shot. She pressed one button, just one. From the surface of the moon, a beam of white light shot outward. It was not loud, it was not dramatic. It was simply there, and then it was done. In the space where 40 Empire ships had been floating, there was nothing, not wreckage, not fire, nothing. 40 ships, gone in less than 1 second. The Empire freezes. Every ship in the Empire fleet went silent. Every officer, every soldier, every commander on every ship stopped. Brix stood with his mouth open. He checked his screen 3 times. 40 ships, he whispered, 40 ships in one. He could not finish the sentence. Ambassador Varen was very still. He had seen weapons before. Powerful weapons. He had seen planets burn. But he had never seen 40 ships disappear in 1 second from one single shot. That was a warning, one of his officers said quietly. Nobody disagreed. Varen stared at the moon, that ordinary-looking moon that had just revealed itself as the most powerful weapon he had ever seen. How many shots can it fire? He asked. Brix checked his data. Unknown, he said. Can our shields stop it? Brix was quiet for too long. Unknown, he said again. Varen closed his eyes for 2 seconds. When he opened them, his face was still calm. But the decision in his eyes had changed. All ships advance, he ordered. Full formation. If we spread out, The moon cannot target us all at once. Move now. The human ships enter the fight from 63 points around the Earth. Human ships were still rising, thousands of them. They moved fast and formed up quickly outside the atmosphere. Sergeant Leo Park flew his ship into open space for the first time. He had trained in simulators for years, but this was real stars, real darkness, real enemy ships filling his screen like a wall of metal. "Park," Captain Rhea Moss said over the radio. "You seeing this?" "Yeah," he said. "Scared?" He thought about it for one honest second. "No," he said. "You?" "Not even a little," she said. "Then let's go," he said. His ship accelerated forward. The Battle of Open Space. What happened next was not what the Empire expected. They expected humans to fight like most species fight, charging forward, firing everything, hoping for luck. That was not what happened. The human ships did not charge. They split into dozens of small groups, each group moving in a different direction. Fast and unpredictable, some groups went high, some went low. Some curved around the sides of the Empire fleet. The Empire fleet was designed to fight in one direction, forward, against a target that held still. These humans did not hold still. Ever. They were constantly moving, constantly changing direction, constantly firing from angles that the Empire ships were not designed to defend. Brix was watching the battle data with wide eyes. "They are not fighting like a military," he said, confused. "Then how are they fighting?" Baron asked. Brix watched for another moment. "Like they are angry," he said, "but also very, very patient." Sergeant Marcus Webb, while the space battle was growing larger. A different mission was happening, small and dangerous and very quiet. Sergeant Marcus Webb was inside an Empire ship. He was not supposed to be there. Nobody had ordered him there. It had happened by accident, or so he told himself later. His small ship had taken damage in the first minutes of fighting. He had made a quick decision. Instead of retreating, he had flown directly into the open landing bay of a large Empire warship. His ship had crashed inside the bay and stopped. Marcus had sat still for 5 seconds. No alarms, no soldiers running toward him. The bay was empty. He had looked at his damaged ship. Then he had looked at the inside of the Empire warship around him. Then he had made a very Marcus Webb decision. He grabbed his weapon and stepped outside. Inside the Empire ship, the corridors of the Empire ship were wide and gray. The lights were blue and cold. Marcus moved quietly. Staying close to the walls, he had no map, he had no plan. He had a rifle, a sidearm, and 30 years of human military instinct. He turned a corner and nearly walked into 2 alien soldiers. They were tall, broad, and wearing heavy armor. They stared at him, he stared at them. For 1 full second, nobody moved. Then Marcus did something that no alien soldier would ever do. He smiled, not a mean smile, a friendly, completely relaxed smile, like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The alien soldiers looked at each other, confused. That 1 second of confusion was all Marcus needed. He moved fast. 3 seconds later, both soldiers were on the floor, unconscious. Marcus stepped over them carefully. "Sorry about that," he said quietly to nobody and kept walking. The engine room. Marcus found the engine room 20 minutes later. He had knocked out 6 more soldiers on the way, each time using the same method, calm, relaxed, completely unexpected behavior, followed by very fast action. The engine room was enormous. Machines the size of buildings hummed with power. 3 alien engineers looked up when he walked in. "Hello," Marcus said calmly. The engineers looked at each other. One of them reached for an alarm panel. Marcus raised one hand. "I would not do that," he said, still very calm. "I am not here to hurt anyone. I just need to use your computers for a few minutes." The engineers did not understand his words, but they understood his tone and they understood the weapon in his other hand. They stepped back from the alarm. Marcus walked to the main control panel. He had studied Empire ship designs for years, not from real ships, from intelligence reports and guesswork. But it was enough. He found what he was looking for. The engine synchronization system. Every ship in the Empire fleet was connected through this system. It kept all 10,000 ships moving in perfect coordination. If he could interrupt it, even for a few minutes, the fleet would lose its formation. 10,000 ships suddenly flying without coordination would crash into each other, or at least slow down long enough for the human ships to gain a serious advantage. Marcus looked at the engineers. "Any of you want to stop me?" he asked genuinely. They looked at each other. Then back at him. Nobody moved. "Okay then," Marcus said. He pulled 3 small devices from his pocket, placed them precisely on the control panel, and pressed the button. The fleet stumbles in space outside. The effect was immediate. The Empire fleet, which had been moving in perfect tight formation, suddenly lost its coordination. Ships began drifting slightly off course. Some turned when they should have gone straight. Some slowed when others were still accelerating. 2 large ships nearly collided. In the human fleet, every pilot saw it happen. "What just happened?" Leo Park said, watching his screen. "I don't know," Rhea said, "but use it, go. Go now." The human ships accelerated hard into the gaps that were opening in the Empire formation, firing precisely, moving fast, hitting ships that were confused and out of position. In 60 seconds, the human fleet had destroyed 200 Empire ships. In the war room on Earth, General Kane watched the numbers change. She allowed herself one small smile. "Webb," she said quietly, not knowing it was him, not knowing what he had done. "Somebody just did something very smart up there. The galaxy watches." What nobody on Earth knew was that the battle was being watched, not just by the Empire, by everyone across the galaxy. Hundreds of species had their sensors pointed at Earth. Some were Empire allies, some were Empire enemies, some were neutral and simply curious. All of them had expected the same thing: a short, one-sided battle ending and Earth's quick surrender. What they were seeing instead was something different, something that made quiet rooms suddenly get very loud. On one distant planet, a council of 12 alien leaders sat around a table watching the battle data. One of them, an old female leader named Sarah, watched the human ships moving through the Empire fleet. She watched for a long time without speaking. Then she said very quietly, "They are not trying to win quickly. What do you mean?" The leader beside her asked. "They are not rushing," she said. "They are not panicking. They are fighting like they have all the time in the galaxy." She leaned forward. "They are going to win this." The room was silent. Then another leader spoke. "If they win, everything changes," Sarah said simply. She looked at the screen, at the small blue planet fighting the largest empire in the galaxy, and she made a decision. She reached for her communication panel, and she sent a private message to Earth in the war room underground. A new signal appeared on one small screen in the corner. An assistant noticed it and stared. Then he picked up the line to General Kane. "General," he said carefully, "we are receiving a transmission from the Empire." Kane asked. "No," the assistant said. "From outside the Empire, from a planet called Sarah Prime." "What does it say?" The assistant read it slowly. It says, "We are watching, we are hoping. And when this is over and we would like to talk." Kane stared at the message, then she looked at the battle screen. Human ships still moving, still fighting, still holding. She thought about what that message meant. If Earth won this battle, it would not just save one planet. It would change the balance of the entire galaxy. She picked up the line to President Harlow. "Sir," she said, "you need to see something." The battle had been going for 6 hours. 6 hours of constant fighting. 6 hours of human ships moving, firing, dodging, and surviving. 6 hours of the Empire throwing everything they had at a planet that refused to break. The numbers were changing. The Empire had lost 400 ships, Earth had lost 80. For the first time in 300 years of galactic warfare, the Empire was losing. Not by a little, by a lot. And the galaxy was watching every single second of it. The Empire Call's Home Ambassador Varen Solis had not sat down in 6 hours. He stood at his window, his silver robe was wrinkled. His 4 eyes were tired. His hands, which had always been perfectly still, were moving slightly, small nervous movements that he did not notice. Brick stood beside him quietly. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Varen said very quietly, "Send a message to the Empire Council." Brix looked at him. That was not a small thing. Sending a message to the Empire Council during a battle meant only one thing. It meant you needed help. It meant things were not going as planned. In 300 years, no ambassador had ever sent that message. "Are you certain, sir?" Brix asked carefully. Varen looked at the battle screen. 400 ships gone, more being damaged every minute. Human ships still rising from the planet below like there was no end to them. The moon still glowing quietly, patiently like it was in no hurry at all. "Send it," Varen said. The Council's answer. The Empire Council received Varen's message in 11 minutes. They read it in silence. There were 7 of them. 7 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had never lost a war. They had never even considered the possibility. They read Varen's report carefully, the human ships, the shield technology, the moon weapon, the engine disruption that had confused the entire fleet, the message from Sarah Prime, other species watching. The council was silent for a long time. Then the head of the council, a very old alien named Grand Commander Ozal, spoke. "Send everything," he said. "Everything, sir?" Another council member asked. "Every reserve ship, every backup fleet, every weapon we have not yet used," Ozal said, his voice flat and cold. "And this today. I want that planet silent by morning." The order was sent. From across the galaxy, Empire reserve fleets began to move toward Earth. 10,000 more ships, then another 10,000, then another. 30,000 additional ships, all heading for one small blue planet. Marcus Webb's problem inside the Empire warship. Marcus Webb had a problem. Several problems, actually. Problem 1. The engine disruption he had caused was wearing off. The devices he had placed were only temporary. In about 20 minutes, the fleet would regain full coordination. Problem 2. Someone had finally noticed the unconscious soldiers in the corridors. Alarms were now going off everywhere. Problem 3. He was lost. The corridors all looked the same. Gray walls, blue lights, doors with alien writing he could not read. Marcus moved quickly through the corridors. He turned left, dead end, he turned right. 3 alien soldiers running toward him. He turned around, 3 more behind him. He stopped. He looked left. He looked right. He looked at the ceiling, then he looked at the floor. There was a maintenance hatch. Marcus dropped to one knee, pulled the hatch open and dropped through it. The soldiers arrived at the empty corridor 30 seconds later. They looked at each other. One of them pointed at the open hatch in the floor. They all looked down into the dark tunnel below. None of them went in, because something about a human willingly going into a dark unknown tunnel was deeply unsettling, even to soldiers who were not easily unsettled. The sealed case Marcus crawled through the maintenance tunnel for 10 minutes. It was dark and tight and smelled like machine oil. He did not complain. He had been in worse places. He came out through another hatch into a small storage room. He sat on the floor and caught his breath. He checked his radio. It had been damaged in the original crash. Only short-range signals were working. He could not reach Earth. He could not reach General Kane. He could not reach anyone in the human fleet. He was completely alone inside an enemy ship. With a battle happening outside, he reached into his jacket, and he pulled out the sealed case. It was small, about the size of a book, black metal, no markings. He had been carrying it since before launch, given to him personally by President Harlow 3 days ago. "Only if they make it personal," the president had said. Marcus had asked what that meant. The president had looked at him with calm, serious eyes. "You will know," he had said simply. Marcus looked at the case now. He thought about the battle outside. He thought about the 30,000 additional Empire ships that he had no way of knowing were coming. He thought about Earth, his city, his family, his daughter who was 12 years old and had made him a drawing before he left. A drawing of Earth from space with the words, "Come home," Dad written at the bottom in green crayon. He thought about that drawing for exactly 3 seconds. Then he opened the case. What was inside the case was one device and one folded piece of paper. The device was small and round. It had one button. The paper had 12 lines of writing on it. Marcus read it carefully, then he read it again. His eyebrows went up slowly. He said quietly, "To nobody." He read it one more time, then he folded the paper carefully and put it back in the case. He looked at the small round device. He looked at the ceiling above him. He was deep inside an Empire warship, connected to the main fleet communication network. He was, by accident or by fate, in exactly the right place. He picked up the device, he pressed the button. Everything stops in space outside. Something happened that had never happened before in the history of the galaxy. Every Empire ship stopped, not slowed down, not changed direction. Stopped completely, all 10,000 ships, floating perfectly still. Silent dark, every engine off, every weapon offline. Every system, everything completely shut down. The human ships noticed immediately. Leo Park pulled his ship to a stop and stared at his screen. "What just happened?" he said. "They all stopped," Rhea said, her voice strange. "Every single one of them, all at once. Did we do that?" "I don't think so." In the war room on Earth, General Kane was staring at the battle screen with wide eyes. Every Empire ship, one solid red dot each on her screen, had gone dark. 10,000 dark dots floating, not moving, not firing. "What is that?" an assistant said behind her. Kane stared for a long moment, then very slowly, a realization moved through her. She thought about the sealed cases. She thought about the 12 pilots who had each been given one before launch. She thought about what the president had told her privately 3 days ago, and she closed her eyes for 1 second. "Webb," she whispered. "You crazy, brilliant man." The signal pulse, what Marcus had activated, was not a weapon. It did not destroy ships, it did not kill anyone. It sent a pulse, a signal pulse, spreading outward from the device in perfectly expanding circles. The pulse was designed for one specific purpose. Every Empire ship ran on the same core operating system. The same basic code, built the same way across all 30 years of Empire ship production. It was efficient, it was practical, it was also, as 30 years of quiet human intelligence work had discovered, a weakness. The pulse found that weakness, and it simply sent every Empire ship a shutdown command. Like turning off 10,000 computers with one switch, the ships did not explode. The soldiers inside were not hurt. They were simply stopped, sitting in powered-down ships with no engines, no weapons, no communications, completely helpless, floating in space like 10,000 very large, very expensive pieces of metal for an in-the-dark ambassador. Vern Solis sat in the dark. His command ship was dark like all the others. Emergency lighting gave the room a faint orange glow. His officers sat at their dead stations. Nobody spoke after a long time, Brick said very quietly. "They knew about the operating system." "Yes," Varen said. "They have known for a long time." "Yes, this was planned." "Yes," Brix was quiet. "Then, all of it?" "The 24 hours, the space battle, everything?" Varen looked at the dark window where the stars were still visible outside. "All of it," he said. He thought about the human president. That calm man who had smiled at the podium, who had asked for only 24 hours. Who had known, from the very first moment, exactly how this would end. Varen had been in 19 planetary conquests. He had faced kings and presidents and generals and warlords. None of them had ever done what this human had done. None of them had ever been this patient. This prepared, this quiet, "What do we do now?" One of his officers asked from the darkness. Varen sat back in his chair. "We wait," he said simply. "For what?" "For whatever humans decide to do with us," he said. And for the first time in his long career, Varen Solis had no idea what would happen next. That feeling was completely new to him. The human choice in the war room. President Harlow stood in front of the battle screen. 30,000 additional Empire ships were still coming from deep space. They would arrive in 4 hours. His generals were giving him options, "Sir. We can use the moon weapon to target the incoming fleet while our ships deal with the disabled fleet here. Sir. We can board the disabled ships and capture them, sir. We can destroy them now while they cannot fight back." The president listened to every option. He stood quietly, then he said, "None of those." The generals looked at each other. "Sir?" Kane said, "Send them supplies," the president said. Complete silence. "Sir," one general started, "food, water, medical supplies," the president said calmly. "Every disabled ship gets a human supply drop within the next 2 hours. We are sending supplies to the fleet that just tried to destroy us?" General Torres said, unable to keep the disbelief from his voice. "Yes," the president said simply. "Why?" Torres asked. The president looked at the screen. At the 30,000 ships still coming, at the hundreds of alien species watching from across the galaxy, at the message from Sarah Prime still sitting on the small screen in the corner. "Because," he said quietly, "the Empire is not just watching this. The whole galaxy is watching this, and I want every species out there to see exactly what humans do when they win." He looked at Kane. "We do not destroy helpless enemies, we feed them." The message that stopped everything. The 30,000 incoming Empire ships received 2 things at the same time. First, the battle data showing their fleet completely disabled. Second, sensor readings showing human ships delivering supply pods to every disabled Empire ship. The incoming fleet slowed, then stopped. The commander of the reserve fleet, a battle-hardened general named Commander Dax, stared at his screen for a very long time. He watched human ships moving carefully between the disabled Empire vessels, delivering supplies, not firing, not capturing, not destroying, just helping. Dax had fought in wars his entire life. He had never seen anything like this. He opened a communication line to Ambassador Varen. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "what is happening out there?" Varen's voice came back quiet and strange. "Something I have never seen before," Varen said. "Are they attacking the disabled ships? No? Capturing them? No. Then what are they doing?" A pause. "They are taking care of us," Varen said. Another long pause on the line, then Dax said very quietly, "I am stopping my fleet." The last conversation, President Harlow requested a direct communication with Ambassador Varen. Varen accepted immediately. They looked at each other across screens for a moment without speaking. Then Varen said, "You planned all of this?" "Yes," the President said. "From the beginning, when you asked for 24 hours, we were already ready," the President said. "We have been ready for 30 years, Varen was quiet. "Then why did you not attack first?" He asked. "Why wait for us to come to you?" The President looked at him steadily. "Because we did not want a war," he said simply. "We wanted to be left alone. We have always wanted to be left alone. We built everything you saw today for one reason only, so that nobody would ever think attacking Earth was a good idea." Varen looked at him for a long time. "And the supplies you sent to my ships," he said. "Your soldiers did not choose this war," the President said. "Your council did. Your soldiers were just doing their jobs. They deserved food and water." Varen was completely still. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "I have conquered 19 planets," he said quietly. "I have never once sent supplies to a defeated enemy." "I know," the President said. "Why are humans different?" Varen asked, and for the first time it was a genuine question. Not arrogant, not strategic, just honest. The President thought about it for a moment. "We are not always different," he said honestly. "We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We are not perfect, not even close. But we decided a long time ago that when we finally met the rest of the galaxy, we wanted to be better than our worst moments. We wanted to show our best." Varen looked at him. "Even to enemies?" "Especially to enemies," the President said. "The galaxy reacts within hours." The news had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Earth had defeated the Empire fleet. Earth had stopped 30,000 additional ships without firing a single shot at them. Earth had fed the enemy they had just defeated. Reactions came from everywhere. Species that had lived under Empire control for decades sent messages to Earth. Some sent requests for communication. Some sent simple words, "Thank you." Some sent nothing but a signal. A single ping that meant, "We see you on Sarah Prime." The council leader watched the news with quiet satisfaction. "I told you," she said to the room. Nobody argued in the Empire Council chamber. Grand Commander Ozal sat very still for a very long time, then he said, "Open a diplomatic channel to Earth." It was the first time in 300 years the Empire had requested diplomacy, instead of demanding surrender. Marcus comes home. 3 days later, Sergeant Marcus Webb was back on Earth. He had been rescued from the disabled Empire ship by a human boarding team. He walked off the transport ship into bright sunlight. His team was there, General Kane was there. The President was there, and at the edge of the crowd, held back by a barrier, was a 12-year-old girl holding a green crayon drawing. Marcus walked past everyone. Past the generals, past the President, past the cameras. He walked to his daughter and picked her up and held her tightly. She held the drawing between them. "Come home, Dad," he had the end 6 months later. Earth sat at a table with the Galactic Empire, and with 11 other species who had asked to join the conversation. It was the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. The human representative was not a general. It was not a weapons expert. It was a quiet woman named Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same scientist who had first detected the Empire signal 6 months ago, the same woman who, shaking hands, had pressed the emergency button. She sat at the head of the table and looked at all the alien faces around her. Then she said simply, "Let us talk about what kind of galaxy we want to build together." The room was silent. Then, one by one, every representative at the table nodded. The Galactic Empire had declared war on Earth. They had 10,000 ships. They had 300 years of victories. They had the certainty that no primitive planet could stand against them. They were wrong, not because humans were the strongest, not because humans were the smartest, but because humans had done something no other species in the galaxy had thought to do. They had prepared, they had waited, they had won, and then they had chosen to be kind, and that, in the end, changed everything. Somewhere deep in space on a quiet human ship, Sergeant Leo Park was looking out his window at the stars. Ria sat beside him. What are you thinking? She asked. He was quiet for a moment. I am thinking, he said slowly, that there are a lot more stars out there. Yeah, she said. And now, he said with a small smile, they all know our name.